Hello all, Nice Tail here, bringing you another knife review, and today we're looking at a proper knife review, as I've done a few unboxings recently. This is a knife that I unboxed, actually a while back. It was one of my first unboxings, and now it's time for the review. A couple weeks have passed, I've carried it a bit, I've used it a bit. I haven't went too brutally hard on this, but I have gotten a pretty good feel for it. And that is the Neeves knives. Shout out to Neeves knives. Misdemeanor. The singing knife. Hopefully that comes across on camera because, my word, it sings. I have cleaned her up a little bit, or a lot bit. She had some stuff on the blade. You might be able to see a little bit of it up there. She has held a ridiculous edge, K320 and K390 and all. Yeah, it's still pretty darn sharp. So this knife is a titanium frame lock in, I think it says it right here, yeah, K390 blade steel with a DLC coating that is satin and very, very, very attractive. This knife has the blade hole aperture for opening and a front flipper. As weird as it is, you know what, we'll get to that. I'm getting ahead of myself. She is still perfectly centered as well. Let's get through specs before I start blathering around on other stuff. You know what? The black background is not working with this. I'm going to put a book here. Yeah, doesn't that make it look a little bit better? Now, if only I knew where the heck my tape measure was, and for some reason it was in a drawer. Okay, interesting. Blade length on the Misdemeanor is 3 5/8, just a bit over 3.5, I'd say. That's to the scale, maybe just a hair under that even, I'm not sure. Yeah, 3 5/8. Let's call it on that to be on the safe side. It's somewhere between 3.5 and 3 5/8, so 3.6, let's call it. Overall length is pretty undeniably 8 1/8, and the handle length is between 4.5 and 4 5/8. So that reinforces my notion that this isn't quite 3 5/8. So it is a decent full-size knife, which we will check out in comparisons right here. Let's get that out of the way for a second. Comparisons to the Misdemeanor. Small knife comparison. Civivi Elementum. Nice budget knife. Small budget knife, but a good one. And the Conspirator, the Civivi button lock that, honestly, I kind of wish it was a budget knife. It's just slightly over, but it is what it is. Still a pretty good knife, though. As you can see, the Misdemeanor is, in fact, larger than both, but it's slim. It's not a super tall knife, it's not a super big knife. It feels and functions pretty much like a hello dog. He's decided to interrupt today. He's been doing pretty good about that, hasn't been doing that a lot. But, needless to say, or as I was saying, this is definitely a full-size feeling knife. I wouldn't call this a large knife. It doesn't cross my threshold of being like 3.75 or greater. So, large knife, full-size knife. I'm contradicting myself. I'm losing my mind. Book is back. Alright. Let's get a weight on the Misdemeanor. 3.98. Not an ounce an inch, but really not bad at all. There is... And that thing sings. No real milling inside. So, that's pretty good. Handle thickness, zero that out, there we go, is 440 thousandths, so under half an inch on the thickness, not that bad. The blade stock, with Misdemeanor, 90 thousandths, very thin. And I know this is going to be a pain in the butt, but I know this thing is thin behind the edge, and let's see if we can get a decent reading for the thickness behind the edge. 13, 12 thousandths-ish? Let's see. Yeah, I'm willing to call that a decent reading behind the edge. I mean, it's super thin, and it does not get a whole lot thicker. Ooh, right there, it's maybe pushing 10. Sorry, I knocked the camera. She is thin behind the edge. She screams through material. K390 holds a crazy edge. And this thing screams through material. I have no experience sharpening K390 yet, because this thing hasn't needed it. But this thing goes through... Let's see. This thing goes through basically everything you put it up against. I mean, this is a horrible angle. I'm under a camera behind a thing, and this thing goes through it, no problem. And it comes back to basically being spotless very, very easily. Last spec I want to check is the... Really? Okay. That's a T6. That's a T10. That's not supposed to be there. There's the T8. In the other driver. I take it back. Maybe the T10 is supposed to be there. Let us see. T10 on the pivot? Yeah, okay. T10 pivot. And... no. Is it really T10 all the way around? I haven't touched the hardware. Holy crap, it's T10 all the way around. Even the lock bar insert is T10. So, minimal hardware. You got 4 screws in total. And they're all T10. And the internal pocket clip. It's not reversible pocket clip, so that doesn't matter. Well, I will actually be messing with this pocket clip, but that'll come later. I'll mention that when it comes to it. So, yeah, gigantic hardware. Is it really that hard to do? Apparently not. That's wonderful. I love seeing that. T10 all the way around. I would have been fine with T8 all the way around. That's great. As you can probably tell, as I just said, I have not messed with the hardware on this thing because it hasn't needed it. There is no play. There has been no walking out of the pivot, and she is still perfectly centered. Honestly, this thing has performed and functioned like a dream, and I love the sounds it makes. I mean, just doing that, you can get it to sing. But pretty much everything you do, even putting it in the pocket, can get some noise out of this thing. Alright, so we've got the comparisons done, and now our specs are pretty much done. So, I'm going to try and do this in a little bit more of a focus-directed manner. in that, for the just sort of overview, we'll start up out here at the tip. Blade shape is perfect for utility cuts. The tip is easily accessed. It's got still a lot of poking tip that is not too low that you're kind of going outside the realm of, like, I don't really want to poke with this thing. It's still pretty usable. We have a very thin hollow grind that stays thin and is going to last for time and time and time with this attractive, though I'm getting it fingerprinted, this very attractive vertical DLC satin with an almost, it's a horizontal satin, but it's almost approaching polish on the flats. The aperture here is very easily accessible and not too sharp, but perfectly more than enough to get yourself grabbed here. And weirdly enough, if you go down, it's not super comfortable, but you can even do it for the regular thumb flick. It does feel a little bit weird because you're going down, but it works. It's probably because it's such a light blade. You have a great spot for, because of the choil, you can definitely choke up, you can definitely pinch grip this thing, you can definitely get up there way close to the edge for finer control. There is a little bit of belly for slicing, for the sort of drawing through stuff. The blade is great. The blade's shape is awesome. It is super functional, super thin, cuts amazingly. I mean, it didn't look that good, but let me tell you, when I just did that cut on that little cardboard box there, again, I am on a book, under a camera, with a thing in my face, at an angle, and it was not hard to go through. So, yeah, it cuts. Plunge grind. And as I said, I'm doing this in sort of an order. I'm going to work my way down the knife. Plunge grind is hard to tell on this thing, but it looks like it's way back here. Which is great. 10 tons of life. No problems whatsoever. And if you need to cut in more sharpening tool, or if you haven't decided that your knife is dead at this point, the sharpening tool can be easily accessed because the stop pin is up here, internally garaged and attached to the blade. So there's nothing in the way. Excellent there. Finger choil is roomy. Even though it looks like a small finger choil because of how much it goes into the blade, I don't feel like I'm going to be anywhere near that edge. I'm not anywhere near that edge. I'm super safe and super comfortable up here and locked in both these positions. Even though this one looks like a pretty small notch, no, it's comfortable. It's pretty great. Speaking of in the pivot here, because we talked about the stop pin, this thing is on bearings. I mean, obviously. My finger's on the lock bar there. Before we move away from the blade, I do want to talk about this jimping. Neeves is a stickler for jimping. And that has left me surprised, as this is not my favorite kind of jimping. I'm just being completely honest. It works, but it's not my favorite. It's the space in between the actual cuts is too big. The squares, I like it finer. That tends to, if you do it finer and can still get it where it's knocked down just enough to not be uncomfortable, that tends to, in my opinion, give you the best possible grip. In fact, hold on one second. I'm going to pause this and I'll be bringing another knife up to show you the comparison. And we are back. Comparison, being the Custom Knife Factory Feet 20. This. Finer jimping. This provides better grip. Like, this is a lot more grip on it. And it's just, it makes the whole thing easier. This isn't bad jimping. It's not doing the terrible things, but it's not providing the grip that I kind of want. Or would have thought it would provide. And it's not really a problem here, but it is a little bit of a problem up here. For the regular thumb, yeah, I guess this is a thumb flick for a front flipper. It's fine. It works good, and that's why I'm saying it's not a problem. But when you start getting into some of the, like, tricky stuff, if you go straight over the top here, based on the way this thing is set up, for me, I'm on the lock bar, I lock myself out. So I kind of have to go off to the side a little bit to get it to go. I can still get it, but needless to say, and the thief is actually a wider one, which usually makes it harder. No problem, because this thing just provides that extra tiny bit of traction. I kind of wish the jimping was done a little bit differently, is what I'm getting at. It's still good. It's just funny because it's one of the last things I thought I'd be saying about Neeves Knives goes and Jared's Knives designs. Yeah. So it works. It's good. It's actually pretty great for that, which is really all that it has to be, so it's fine. I'm not going to take points away from it. I'm just going to say it could have been better. Let's be honest, we're opening this knife that way because it's just so satisfying. Okay. So, pivot. Oh, I guess branding on the blade, there is nothing. It's right. That's it. That's great. That's wonderful. I love that. I actually, personally, I kind of wish that wasn't on the pivot, maybe just right above it. I feel like it would look better just kind of like as an accent somewhere. I'm not too fond of my pivots being dressed up as with logos on them, unless it's a super mild one like Wii's logo where you kind of can't tell it's a logo. I don't know why. I think it just looks more knifey. That's just me. That's a personal preference. That is not a knock against it. This is a perfectly fine logo, and it looks good. And I like the colorway, too, here, with this black and sort of green, with a hint of blue in it. Just a hint. Just a hint in some parts of it. So, now on to the... That never gets old. Now on to the lock bar, because we're still at the front out part of the knife, and the lock bar is freaking amazing. You have access for days, coming from the side. It's super easy to do. It doesn't have that horrible jimping on there. It's got just a nice bit of texture that provides grip. And it's this diamond texture. Honestly, I'd like to see this texture just on one of his knives in the future. This is a nice texture right here. It's diamond texture, but it's subtle, and they're small diamonds, and they're kind of spread apart. So it looks different. I like it. Easy access. No problem whatsoever. No double clutch. I mean, you're way past the detent. I mean, let's see where the detent actually is. The detent is... there. And seeing as you have this much room, you're going to be past it. No problems whatsoever. Wonderful. And the lock bar insert, which is definitely in there, but you can't even see it. You can see the screw, but you can't see it, so that's great. These edges are knocked down, except for right here, but honestly, at no point do I feel it. Some knives you can feel that when it's not knocked down. I don't find myself in a position to really get that whatsoever. So now moving on to the handles, we have this dimpled sort of almost hammered kind of jig texturing, something. I didn't think I was going to like this, honestly. But, and I'm not going to say it's my favorite finish on the outside. I still kind of prefer just like consistent vertical lines or some milling of some sort, pattern of milling or something. But it provides just that tiny little bit of feeling and grip, and it's very nice. So it's grown on me much more than I thought. And it doesn't look bad. It's different, which is often a good thing. And in this case it is. ergos are just ridiculously neutral. This thing is super comfortable in the hand. The only thing I will say is I do feel the clip. I think the clip maybe bends a little bit more than it needs to, because I kind of feel this little part of the clip right here. Kind of. Mostly in this grip. Like, this grip is, the Gorilla kind of push grip is not bad, but I feel the clip a little bit. So I just sort of orient myself out of it, and it's not as bad. Going up here, super, super comfortable, no problem whatsoever. And that's where I would Gorilla grip this thing anyway, so it's not a problem. It's super comfortable in the hand. I'm just thinking, because it's narrow, you're gonna just always feel that clip. And I just wonder if it... And these are... Any suggestions I make are super minor, like... I'm splitting hairs here. There is nothing wrong with this knife. This is a really good design. I love it. But I have to say, if I'm going to find something, I have to... I mean, if I'm going to review it, I have to find and look for something. And maybe having the clip not arc quite as much could be good. Maybe straighten it out a little bit instead of arcing, so you have as much pointing here and as much pointing here. Just keep the whole thing a little straighter. Maybe. I'm not even sure if that would do it. If that would improve anything. It's pretty close to hand melting as it is. Geared backspacer, very nice. The lock bar cutout is on the inside, which makes it look pretty darn great here. Sometimes designs make good use of it being on the outside. They don't look bad, but it's not the case here. This just looks great. Nothing to worry about the clip. The clip is... What is with this one little piece of sticky something that will not go away? I've been noticing it for a while, and it's bugging the crap out of me. Oh, I also want to mention that this part of the clip here is knocked down, so it goes down really fast, so it's even more comfortable. If you get hard edges at the back end of the clip, sometimes you can feel them. Not here. So that was taken into consideration. That's good. The clip is honestly the only kind of weak point on this knife, in that it's the particular angles that it's at. It's not got a lot of spring. It's kind of stiff, and I would say it's not the greatest in and out of the pocket. The way it's this continuous rise kind of plateaus and flattens out at the tip here. With how stiff it is, it does make it a little bit harder than it needs to be in and out of the pocket. It works, and it holds it really well. But it could be a little bit better. Now, that said, Neeves, upon releasing this thing, already addressed that. He wasn't super happy with it, and supposedly he's getting alternate clips made for this knife. I mean, he basically did it before it ever was a problem, addressed it before it was even a problem. So, yeah, he's on the ball. Nothing but good to say there. I'll be grabbing one of these clips, seeing what the updated or modified version ends up looking like. And, yeah. I think we've went over this knife pretty thoroughly. And overall, this is like a 9 out of 10. And I don't give 10 out of 10 away, because there's no such thing as perfect. Maybe 8.5 until this clip changes. Yeah, 8.5 sounds about right. There are things that you can improve on an 8.5, but they're minor. Jimping, clip. That's it. Everything else about this knife is fantastic. It's worked well. As I said, the clip was a little bit of a pain on some of my pants to carry, but overall, it still functioned great. The blade is wonderful, looks wonderful. Honestly, if he does another one of these, I may pick up a second one. just because. Yeah. I like it. It's a good one. If you had the chance to get one, or you see one pop up on like a secondary market, because I don't think there's any more of these floating around right now. Hopefully he will do more of these. But if you see one and you have a chance, check it out, because it's pretty cool. It's pretty great. It's good design. And I think this is his first truly official knife design that he's released. He has done that one with Wii, but I don't think it's even close to being released yet. So, yeah. The Neeves Knives Misdemeanor. I like it. It's definitely going to be sticking around in my collection. It's definitely earned its place in one of my knife cases. And I'm going to probably make more of an effort to carry this one than I do some of my other knives, just because this is a knife that feels like it wants to be used. It just is a good one. So, overall, very positive review here. If you've watched, I appreciate it. Like, subscribe if you want, comment down below. I will see you guys in the next one. And dog is back, so I'm gonna go see what he wants. See y'all. Bye for now.